Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Ogbanje Joseph. Please hit the subscribe button to subscribe to this channel, like and share this video as well. So today our attention is focused on the theory of international relations called idealism. Idealism. Now, the concept or the theory of idealism is one of the foremost, theories in international relations. In fact, idealism is one of the traditional theories of international relations. Idealism, is actually, a theory that came into existence, from the earliest stages of international relations. Don't forget that I talked when we're talking discussing the evolution of the international system. I explained about the first international organization that came into existence. What was the Council of Constance? The second avenue that the Europeans actually came together, to have what is known as, an international collaboration, is the Treaty of Westphalia in 1648. Now, after that Treaty of Westphalia in 1648, a whole lot of scholars started coming up with different ideologies and theories, on how best the international system can be properly structured and for there to be global peace and security. And one of the foremost theories that were actually propounded by scholars like John Locke, that is English philosopher like John Locke, Woodrow Wilson, and some other scholars are or is idealism. Idealism, the concept of idealism, actually started as far back as the time, as at the time of the English philosopher John Locke in 1632, in 1632. Don't forget that at this point, what shaped, the world at this point was people actually looking at the best way that the international system can be properly structured so that there will be peace and security. Now, what is the concept of idealism? The concept of idealism is gotten from the word idea. Is gotten from the word idea. It is actually, it is actually, a concept that talks about, utopianism. It is actually a concept that talks about an ideal state, not utopianism per se, but an ideal state, of the globe. You understand? So when we're talking about idealism, we are looking at the ideal state, or an imaginary state, an imaginary state that the world will have to be positioned in such a way that there is global peace and security. Idealism actually comes from the root word, comes from the idea that human beings are naturally good. And so because human beings are naturally good, if you extrapolate it to the international system, it is assumed that states within the international system are good. And so because they are good, there is need for collective security. There is need for countries to actually come together to have collaboration and multi and bilateral relations, to ensure that countries also practice what is known as democratic peace process, in such a way that if all countries actually practice democracy, no country is actually going to go to war. So that is it. So what are the perspectives? What are the various perspectives of idealism. So, like political realism, idealism, since since scholars like Robert Cohen, Joseph Nye, Woodrow Wilson, John Locke, and all of that actually came up, to talk about what can actually shape the international politics. Now, while idealism is actually talking about, the fact that there is no hope for the international system because the international system is chaotic, idealism looks at it from the other perspective. Okay, idealism is basically optimistic. Okay, as far as idealism is concerned, you know it is actually talking about utopianism. Okay, it is actually talking about you know human nature human nature being good. Okay, and that when you are actually talking about idealism, you're looking at the fact that you know the peaceful and just system is better than a chaotic and a warlike international system. So idealism argues in favor of the fact that it argues in favor of the fact that war is not the best way to actually have the international or organize the international system. War can only lead to destruction of lives and properties. So the best to actually do or to achieve within the international system is for countries to practice peace, to practice collective security, to actually come together to ensure that there is bilateral, multilateral relations. It was idealism that actually birthed the idea of international organizations. Okay, so because idealism or the idealist scholars, you know, argued around the establishment of the international system, that was what led to the formation of the League of Nations. That was what led to the formation of the League of Nations. Okay, so those are the things. Now, let us look at several perspectives. Don't forget that according to John Locke, okay, according to John Locke, now the state of nature is actually a state where human beings are good, okay, and they decided to actually come together, okay, to donate their um their powers to an entity, and this entity is expected to actually use this power to protect them. And if for any reason this entity is not able to protect them, the people will actually use the power they have reserved to remove the power from the entity they have put in place. To that extent, the modern state is actually in place. But what is important to note here is that the idealist school of thought is of the notion that the best way to actually achieve world peace is for countries to come together to actually have what is known as democracy, that states should actually use their power for peaceful purposes, okay, instead of aggression and all of that. So those are the things. So what is the major what are the major assumptions of idealism? What are the major assumptions of idealism? Number one, the creation of international organization, okay, that would provide a forum in which states could negotiate their differences. So they argue in favor of the creation of international organizations so that states can actually come together on a round table to discuss issues that are of common interest to them and to also sort out their differences. That is number one. Number two, this theory advocates for the abandonment of the theory of balance of power in favor of international collective security. In fact, it is this theory that actually made a case for for collective security. Collective security. So number three, that war is as a result of is a secret agreement between, secret agreements, between the political elites or the elite class, and that if the citizens are aware of it, they will never allow that war should be fought. Then number four, that national self-determination is actually the major source of war. So if people actually have their determination, they will not want to go into war. That is actually the next one. The next one is the spread of democracy. They advocated for the spread of democracy. They are in favor of democratic peace theory, in which case, if a nation actually practices democracy, it will be difficult for such a nation to go into war with other democracies. So that is actually for the next one. The next one is that states should use their power, you understand, for peaceful purposes, and not for aggression. So that is actually the next one. So idealism actually argues, that although some states would want war, the moral will of the majority that does not like war would stop them. And the theory believes that war could be stopped through a world institution, that is, the League of Nations and United Nations organization. It was because of this idealism that the League of Nations was actually formed in the first instance. So it does not like war. This theory actually argues that through the formation of world institution, they will actually, there will be world peace, and that was why the League of Nations was actually formed. Now don't forget that there are criticisms, or there are critiques, of the idealist school of thought, because the criticism is that, why is it that after the formation of the League of Nations could not stop the occurrence of the Second World War? Because according to these people, that if there are formations of the international organization, there won't be war. Now, there was First World War. After the First World War, don't forget the First World War happened between 1914 to 1918. But before the end of the First World War in 1917, the League of Nations was actually formed. When the League of Nations was formed, the League of Nations held sway, ensuring global peace until 1939, when the Second World War actually came into existence. The Second World War happened between 1939 to 1945. So the critique is that if idealism insisted that if there is a formation of international organization, then there will be world peace. Why is it that even after the formation of the League of Nations could not stop the occurrence of the First World War? That is actually a critique, that just the formation of international organization alone is not enough to actually guarantee world peace. That's number one. Number two, that the practice of democracy alone does not also guarantee world peace, because even with democracies have fought, democracies have actually fought in the past, and they have continued to fight. So that is actually number two. Then number three, they said that they should abandon the formation or the theory of balance of power, in favor of collective security. But the argument is that if you put your security in the hands of one institution, when the chips are down, such institutions cannot guarantee your peace and security. So to this extent, you can actually say that, based on the strength of this criticism, the idealist theory, is not complete. Now, what is the application of this theory to the international system? Now, don't forget that the formation of the League of Nations, okay, in 1917, actually, is the application of this theory. Now, having created or established the League of Nations, what you have seen is actually, the demonstration or the practicality of the idealist school of thought. It's not just that the League of Nations was formed, there was also collective security. And the principle behind collective security is that, a threat to one nation is a threat to all. So the League of Nations at that point was actually in favor of, of collective security. Okay. Now we also see that after the after the Second World War and after the Cold War, the international system as we have it today is actually ruled by idealism. It's ruled by idealism because now there is a superimposition of the United Nations. And today, the United Nations actually ensures that through her organ, the Security Council, they ensure that where there is a threat to global security, the Security Council actually waits in there, as it was the case in Iraq, as it was the case in some parts of the Middle East. The United Nations, even of course, in Libya and some other countries, the Security Council has actually waded into conflicts, in those countries to ensure that there is collective security. Now, the superimposition of the United Nations, okay, to ensure that there is world peace is actually a clear demonstration or practicalization of or application of of the idealist school of thought. So the basic thing that we must understand today is that because there is, entrenchment of democracy in several parts of the world, we are having what is known as relative peace and security in the globe or in the world today, because this principle of democratic peace theory has actually ensured that countries that practice democracy hardly ever go to war, and that is why we are having relative global peace and security today. Thank you very much.